Well, g'day everyone. We're doing a live from the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, host club for the Sydney Hobart Yacht Club with the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia in Sydney. These are some of the trophy cabinets, and got a long history down here. It's a great club. This is the boardroom, and the GGR team is now established here. We've got Jesse Martin, our doco man. Say good day, Jesse.
How you doing?
And Tina, our audio assistant for the doco.
G'day.
Cool. And Aida from
Hi,
Le Sable de
Dan.
Lone Brew, and Christoph, our
Alright.
photo man. So this is the boardroom. It's actually the race office for the Sydney Hobart Yacht. The race office for the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race, and we're going to go through. This is just to show you where we're hanging out. This is actually the radio room, and this is going to be our new office. Jean is here. Say hello, Jean. Hello. And out there are all the moored yachts and so on. So we'll be taking up office here, and it's quite cool because we can actually talk to all the entrants on HF radio. I'll pass this over to Jane now. I'll take that one. And new home for the next month, for all of October. And as I say, the beauty of it is that we'll be able to use the HF radios to actually chat to the entrants during their chat sessions, and you'll be part of that. We'll actually record some of them live once it gets going. We haven't started that yet. You probably noticed that Céline back in the office, Céline and Caroline are holding the fort back in Le Sable de Lone. Celine's been doing the phone calls on SoundCloud, so that's happening there, and eventually in the next couple of days we will bring those phone calls down to Hobart as well. We've got to set up the recorders, get a landline, a few other different issues, and then we'll be okay to pick up, and I'll be talking to the entrants once again. So what's been happening? Okay, we're here and established. It was all pretty busy in the office with Gregor and Tommy and all those issues that were happening. Then we had 48 hours of travel to get down here, which was okay. We've been here this is our second day now, connecting with the various flag officers at the yacht club, and Alistair sorting out all the logistics of the first film drop. And Jean-Luc, of course, is trundling away towards Hobart. He's about 370 miles away right now, and we're still having some confusion about what his ETA is going to be because the weather is very unstable. Not bad weather, it's actually light weather, and that's going to slow him down a bit. So we're still saying right at this instant, I had a look about 10 minutes ago, and I reckon it's going to be late Friday, Tasmanian time, or possibly even Saturday morning. It depends on what happens when he gets around the corner. There is often a wind shadow here. You may have seen that in the Sydney Hobart yacht races, but they've all been warned, and they can motor, and the smart ones will use up a bit of fuel to get here, which will save them a lot of time in the end. We'll be coming to Kingston Beach, which is a metropolitan beach. It's about 8 miles south of here, and where they pick up the anchor to hold position after they cross the line, it's very clearly visible from the beach. So if you're in Hobart here, you can actually come down and you can see Jean-Luc there during the daytime out on his boat. And it looks like there's going to be a few locals bringing their boats out to say good day as well. So we'll talk more about that as it goes on, and it's one of the questions that's happening as well. I'll get back into a routine of the lives and the question sessions on a regular basis, and also the video updates of the tracker, so I can give you my interpretation of the weather. We haven't done that yet. We've been pretty busy. That may start probably tomorrow morning. Or tomorrow morning Tassie time. So I'll get back into that routine. If you've been watching the tracker, it's amazing at the moment. That whole sort of 40th degree of latitude where the boats are sort of tending to be, or just above, is again very unstable with a series of centres of high pressure systems, and there's not a lot of wind there. There's holes all over the place, so boats are slowing down. It's a hard slog across the Indian Ocean, not just heavy weather but frustrating headwinds and light weather, so on. But there is another big storm coming as well. There's another one shaping up to be quite interesting. That'll be around the 8th or the 9th of this month, so we're watching that as well, see how it evolves. A lot can change in 5 or 6 days. So that's about all. So yeah, when I do the live again tomorrow on the tracker, I'll bring up issues about the entrants and challenges they're having. Christoph is just doing another written report for the update. You'll see that come up tonight. And apart from that, everyone's tracking along reasonably well. There's no big issues there at all. So I'll get straight on to it. I've had lots of different questions. We've missed one question and answer session that was supposed to happen the weekend of the excitement. and it didn't happen. So we've started again. I've got some questions here now that people have come into. You probably read that Gregor has arrived in Fremantle, or in Perth, from HMAS Ballarat. That was incredible. You know, he's now back in the real world. Very happy to be there. Incredibly grateful for Ballarat. We all are. It was an amazing deployment that they got out so quick, and they returned. There was probably a little bit of a loss that they didn't bring Tommy back as well. But as you know, the Indian Navy and the Indian Air Force, everyone was actively involved with what was happening, and they grabbed their man from Amsterdam Island, and he's now well on his way back to India. And he's given a report, a written report about what happened on the night. And I've got to say, I read it, I got it at the same time you did, and I was gobsmacked. I mean, what he went through was really quite extraordinary. And it's on a post about 4 or 5 down on Facebook now. You can read about it. It was an incredible story, and this is just the basics. It's not the fine detail, but that was scary enough. And I'm sure that when it's all over, again, Tommy will give us a graphic account of all the bits in between for the sailors. You know, you the real person that's interested in the fine detail. It'll come out, and it sounded like a pretty scary situation and very dangerous seas. There's no question about that, and Gregor will be the same. Just stepping back a bit further, back to RA, we said that when RA got his head together again and got organised, he had a lot of work to do with his boat. It's staying in Cape Town. It'll be sold. It was insured, a few other different things, but he has just given an extensive interview to GGR on exactly what happened. We've got all the videos and so on. That interview will go out to, there's about 30 magazines that are going to get it, and there'll be in-depth analysis of what happened to RA. So check your local magazines for that. It'll go out. We're giving them a bit of a run because the magazines have been good to us. So they'll have that, and we'll discuss that and other things in the future, and I'll bring that up with the questions we've got. That leads in. So, and Gregor will be back. He'll talk about exactly what happened to him as well. So, lots of interesting information to learn from that experience. It's quite something. So we're at the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania. We're happy to be here. As I said, it's a really friendly club, and the welcome here has been really warm and genuine. It's fantastic, and we've already had a few people contacting us. How can they come and meet us? And we're always happy to meet our followers. So keep your eye on Facebook. We will have something happening here. There's a couple of things planned where just the public here in Hobart and Tasmania can come and meet us and ask a question, say g'day. One will be an amazing photographic exhibition. Nick Gaff, who lives here in Hobart, he's our digital director. He's also a photographer, and he took all the portraits of all the entrants before the start. So those black and white shots that you saw of both Gregor and Tommy laying in a bunk were part of the portrait sequence that we're using for a big portrait book before and after the GGR of all the entrants that finished the race, and those that set off as well. So he's going to give a showing. There'll be an exhibition here in Hobart, Tasmania on the 20th of October. So watch out for that if you're local. It'll be quite special. And then we'll bring that exhibition back to France, and it will be exposed in the race office area in the Sable agglomeration later on as well. But we'll have that's an opportunity to get together with people as well. So moving right along, we'll go straight into these questions, and that'll bring up subjects that you're all probably interested in. Oh, before I do, obviously we've got, this is a Scanty 400 watt HF radio that we'll be using to transmit to the Entrants, a very powerful unit. And because of the terrain here with the mountains and everything, to shoot out to the other side of Tasmania, we're actually using a repeater for HF radio at Mount Murray, which is a bit further down. I won't get into the technicalities, but so it means we'll be transmitting on this 400 watt set, but to receive and get a better reception, we'll be using a different radio for the reception. It's got an aerial actually down there, and it's linked to the internet, and it comes through to here via internet, and that gives us the best of both worlds. So we will be, as I say, we'll do some of that live, and you'll get to hear some of the entrants, and we can ask them some bits and pieces as well. So that'll be a bit of fun. I know in most other parts of the world, there's not a lot of people using HF radio, but in Australia, it's still actively used, even in the Sydney-Hobart race, and this is the radio room for the Sydney-Hobart race. they're using HF radio. It's mandatory. Sure, they've got satellite phones and bits and pieces, but all the basic stuff comes through, and the important safety stuff comes through via radio. So it's still very relevant to Australia, and it always has been. I've been brought up on HF single sideband radios, even AM radios. That's how back I go. Before they had single sideband, it was analog AM, and that was a whole different story. That was back 45 years ago. Anyway, or more, 45, nearly 50 years ago. So yeah, it'll be happening out of here. So first question from Stephen Eddy, salvaging Tommy's boat. This is a big question on everyone's mind. There were 2 Navy boats that were sent down, and one is the stealth warship, and that's where Tommy is at the moment, and he's back underway on his way to India. To the best of our knowledge, it's a rumour. It's not official yet, because we have different connections there. They're still planning to attempt to salvage Tommy's boat, and the idea is that 3 sailors will be put on the boat. They will look at building a jury rig, a solid jury rig, possibly. The engine should be operational again. They'll check the safety equipment, do all those different things, and then those guys will try and sail it to Australia. Perfectly safe. If you've got 3 on board, you don't have to worry about your wind vane. It'll be a short, small rig that's, this is my opinion anyway, my impression, that's like being reefed all the time. It's going to be a slow trip to Australia, but it'll be perfectly safe. Engine will be running, safety gear's all there, so that's the plan. So watch this space. Gregor's boat, and it's a question further down, we discussed that. He was instructed not to scuttle. There was a sensitive marine park there in that area around Isle Amsterdam and so on. Similar to a lot of the sub-Antarctic islands, the same as Macquarie Island. You've got a big special area zone there, and there's certain things you can't do there. You can't, MARPOL says you can't do normal pollution, but to actually sink a boat, it's like a huge no-no. So Gregor was prohibited from scuttling his boat, even if he wanted to. And so now the tracker is still going, the AIS unit is still transmitting, so hopefully that'll stop anyone from hitting that boat. Chances are 1,000,000 to 1 that someone might hit that as a navigational hazard, and we just have to wait and see what happens. I mean, no one's going to go back to scuttle it necessarily. There's no indication that the Navy have the capacity to try and salvage it, so they're not considering that at this point of time. So Gregor's boat is afloat, and we'll just have to see where it goes and what it does. Next question from Stephen Eddy was, what's the deal with Igor's hand problem? Now, this is a problem which is evolving, and I'll give you my opinions again here, because my father was an incredibly heavy smoker as well. Certainly, your hands get hammered when you're sailing solo, and you're also absorbing a lot of moisture into your hands in the Southern Ocean, which softens the skin. And he's in a situation now where those little nicks and cuts are not healing too well. And that, whoops, there's the phone. It's not the emergency phone, is it? No. Okay, we'll let that roll. And that's making it hard. His hands are stinging, they're painful, and it's making it hard for him to sail the boat. Now, what I think might be happening to Igor, you've probably read that his furling gear has got a problem, and he talks about the massive vibration of his furling gear. He's blown some sails, right? Torn sails and so on. If you're having trouble working your boat, you have to furl a sail very efficiently in a set process. And if you don't do that, the sail will be flogging, which vibrates the reefing gear, which then has a chance to damage the reefing gear, maybe tear sails. So that could be happening. And another point, I'll just bring this up. I'm not saying this is exactly what's happening to Igor's hands, but he left with 600 packets of cigarettes. You can always see him in the photos with a cigarette. When you're a heavy smoker, the blood vessels in your extremities are not really efficient, and that certainly wouldn't be helping the situation either. So we're watching it closely. He's undersailing the boat, there's no question. Forget about the weather. He's going relatively slow. So we're watching and monitoring, and the last word was last week that his hands are getting better, and he's able to do a few other things. He did have some heavy weather, so hopefully he'll start to make some reasonable progress towards Hobart. Mark Dyson, what's the Hobart Gate details? It's pretty simple. There is a line just off the headland at Kingston Beach. The boats have to cross that line. For the moment they cross that line, which is marked with some buoys, the clock goes, and they're not allowed to recross it and head to Cape Horn for at least 90 minutes. I think you'll find the majority of the entrants will stay longer. They can if they want. And if that's the case, Jean-Luc has suggested he will talk to media friends and all that sort of stuff. Then he'll probably check his rig. This is after he's stopped. Climb the mast, have a look. Then he says he might go to sleep for about 4 hours, depending on the weather, and then set sail again. So, and that will be a common routine. Mark Slatzer said he's got halyard problems. He's going to look at that. And so there'll be locals coming out in their boats to say g'day, and we'll be out there with boats filming, doing the live Facebook and so on. And we'll be also doing a special French session. Christophe will be managing that back to the race office in Les Sables-d'Olonne. People there will be asking questions back and forwards to Jean-Luc direct. So it's a great opportunity to catch up. We also get their films and bits and pieces, which we then can expose over the months, as they're leading into the Horn. So that's the basic details. Pretty simple. Thor Nordson, lightning strikes. Wanted to know, unusually, I was quite surprised to hear all the reports about lightning and thunder in the Southern Ocean. It doesn't normally happen. It's not that sort of an environment, but a lot of entrants have talked about lightning and so on, and it's pretty scary. I've been in lightning storms up in the North Atlantic, in the Gulf Stream and all that. It's scary, you can't tell where it is. What are the entrants doing? I've got no idea. We didn't discuss it. We never thought that it would be there. But people do things like hanging chain off the rigging. They put all their VHF handhelds and so on in a foil bag or something, wrap them in foil to stop any strikes blowing the only electronics they have. But no one's talked about it much at all. So they'll get by and carry on. But later on in the wrap up of the race, we can ask them maybe some more detailed questions on that. Yvonne Coolgan asked the classic, have we been approached for the film rights for the GGR yet? I didn't know whether to laugh, smile or whatever, but certainly not. But if Hollywood's interested, we're here, and Jesse Martin's right there behind the camera, and he'd love to hear about put Jesse on screen. Hello, Jesse.
A lot of good footage, a lot of interesting stories.
Exactly.
It's not over yet.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, back this way. So we're open to offers. Bring them on, baby. We certainly, with the doco, the doco is going to be fantastic. We're scheduling for 2 1 hours, and we don't have any support on that at all at the moment. Jesse is a filmmaker of note and documentary producer and so on, and we're working on this together. But we'd be happy to talk to backers on that, and we will actively be pursuing that once all the boats have gone through Hobart, because we'll have some interesting stuff to show people. So let's hope, even though we didn't get a sponsor, we will get some support to produce and make great post-production and so on. For the documentary, better than you might say the movie, the sound backing, like the music on our tributes to Entrants. A few people said, "Oh, strange music." That's because it's free. We can't afford to buy dedicated music, but if we had better budgets, we could. But there you go. Charles Grossi, maritime law about Gregor scuttling his boat. I think I just went through that. He was told he couldn't. He would have preferred probably to scuttle it, but it is secure. He put everything below, and we'll just it'll be interesting to watch what happens to the boat, I suppose, over the next number of months. To see where it goes and what it does. Jarrett Lowe, he had posed an interesting question. He said, with the lack of autopilots because an autopilot will steer by a compass course. A wind vane, when it's steering, it has the flip-flop vane to act as the sensor when it's going off course. When you're in big swells and big storms, it's very hard for that flip-flop to act properly if they're up and down in valleys and crests of these big blows. And he's saying, if they had electric autopilots, would there be less chance of knockdowns versus sailing the boat under wind vanes? It's an interesting point, and I'd have to say that possibly if I was in heavy weather in the Southern Ocean and I had access to an electric autopilot, I would probably click the autopilot in, because it's going to steer a straighter course. I've sailed around the world under autopilot only, not wind vanes, and I still got knocked down 7 times in the Indian Ocean, or 7 and 11, I forget which side. But anyway, I got knocked down heaps of times, and I still had under autopilot. So generally, it's not an issue. It's tough when it's tough. That's what I would say. Then the next one was, he said, any comments about Vito Dumas and Montessia not using drogues or towing warps or anything. Vito Dumas was one of the first solo guys to sail around the world back in the 40s, I think it was, and he went in the middle of winter, in a 32-foot double-ender. And Montessia, when he went round, he started towing drogues because he thought that was the thing to do. This is before the original Golden Globe race. This is when he sailed on the long route from Tahiti around Cape Horn with his wife back to France. And he experimented, and in the end, he cut the lines. He didn't like what was happening to the boat to keep Joshua moving fast, and he never used drogues or warps ever again, because he figured it had to go. It was a lot more comfortable moving. and also using a different trim tab wind vane system. So what's my opinion on that? Drogues, no drogues? It's a very personal choice, and it's up to the entrants or the skippers at the time, depending on sea state. They're still experimenting with different ideas. I know Mark Slats went through the whole process, and in the end, in that bad storm, decided not to use. He got rid of the warps, and he's decided small sail up the front and go for it. And that's my attitude as well. I would hesitate. It'd have to be some special occasion, but I still carry a drogue, and I still have the ability to run warps. I just never done it. Andy French, has any of the entrants got series Jordan series drogues? We got asked this a couple of weeks ago, and I tried to explain it. Yes, some of them do have it. Are they? And he says, are they using them? I would imagine they possibly are. That's the short answer to those questions. That's one that has a lot of little pockets down a rope. It's one of the easier drogues maybe to launch, but I dread the thought of launching a drogue. Nightmare. Okay, Patch Graham. Notice that Susie was heading north with headwinds at one stage, going away from the course. You can do different things to do instead of doing that, because if you're trying to go east and you've got to go north or south, why waste the effort? And he asks, have any of the entrants got para anchors? Okay, because some entrants will hove to, some will lay a hull, and you can do a parachute anchor. And what that is a huge parachute, okay, with a rope on it. And so you put that in the water and you hang off that. So the bow of the boat now is hanging on this underwater parachute and riding a storm. Now I can tell you, I've had a bit of experience with parachute anchors. I've owned one of the biggest parachute anchors ever built in Australia. It was 120 feet in diameter, okay, massive, like 120 feet thing. And it had a 60-ton warp on it. Like the warp was like 4 inches in diameter. That was for our little ship. That was 36 feet long, 36 meters long, 600 ton, and a lot of the squid boats use them. The squid boats out there, they anchor to the ocean with these big parachute anchors. I also had parachute anchors in the bounty boat trip as a last resort in a cyclone. It was about a 12-foot diameter. The bounty boat was a 25-foot open whale boat. We sailed 4,000 miles across the Pacific, recreating the mutiny on the Bounty, and we trained with that. And in heavy weather, you could do that. The problem is, setting a parachute anchor in the Southern Ocean is even worse than trying to set drogues. So, to the best of my knowledge, none of the entrants are carrying a parachute anchor. They have a use, especially for multi-hulls in big headwinds and stuff on a lee shore, but there's no GGR entrants that are carrying parachute anchors. So they are good, but they are for specific occasions, and the GGR's not really it, in my opinion. Anyway, okay. Where are we? Andrew Hutton. Where's GGR based? Well, I've gone through that. Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, fantastic club, very friendly. They welcome visitors. You can sign in the book. You can dine here. You can hire room spaces. They have a great junior sailing. They have tackers in Optimus dinghies, and they have other middle range training fleet. They run the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. It's a great club. It's fantastic. So I was a member here for about 10 years, I think, until I moved away, sort of thing. Okay, and we will have something to let people come and join us, either at the photo exhibition, the portrait exhibition, or even here one night. I'm not sure. Okay, so next one, Andrew Hutton. Paul Clark's noticed that the entrants are up a bit high. Was Susie going too far north again? All of that group at the back of the fleet actually headed north to avoid that storm the other day, and they're holding that position. There's crazy weather at the moment there. There's lack of wind and holes everywhere. Normally the target is 40 degrees south. That's generally the roaring 40s, and where you get the best wind. If you do go north with the pressure systems, you run the risk of falling into holes and have headwinds, But I don't think Susie's too far north. She's sailing efficiently and doing really well, and a lot of the other fleet are in a similar position. But you'll notice they're all coming back down to 40 degrees south. Okay. Sandra Rafferty. Video tracker updates. Okay. She's missing them. There's a few people missing them, and I'm happy to do them, and we'll get back into a routine. I'll try and do the first one again tomorrow morning, live tracker update, weather and so on, and then it's every few days for me. Christophe will start doing the French ones again a couple of times a week, and we'll do a French update on questions and answers as well in the next few days. Okay, so Mike and Gay Lewis asked a complicated question about strategies of entrance, about going around capes, distance off reefs, headlands, the way they detect shoals and things like that. everyone, they're all good mariners. They've all got their own safety standards and safety zones and distances and things like that. So I'm not really sure of what each individual do, but they're all very sensible. That's the way I'd treat it, and they've all got their own plan. I think he's probably saying in relation to Captain Coconut when he went underneath the Cape there, Gullah Strait, that was hairy. I mean, to be 1.5 miles offshore at night time by yourself solo around the coast, that was challenging, but he did it. And so, and the others all tended to get south as quick as you can. That's the general rule. Get south, try and get under all the current zone, and then head east once you get down there and you get the following breezes. So, both strategies work. That's all okay. So complicated. Everyone does it differently. We've got Ian Hallett, GGR. Okay, we've had a couple of. He said GGR capsizers lost their rig. They weren't capsizers that lost the rigs. We've had 3 rollovers, and with the rollovers, all 3 have lost their masts. And we've been, all our team and other sailors are all asking the same thing. Okay, why are we losing the rigs? Now I've been rolled 360. In my BOC. It was a 50-foot aluminium boat, very big rig, twin spreader rig. I kept my mast. Others have been rolled over 360 degrees and they've kept their mast. So what's going on? Why did we lose 3 masts? And I don't really know, but it's an interesting subject and it's creating a great conversation. And we'll be looking into that. There's a couple of things that are starting to come up and I don't know the answers yet. I had a discussion today with a solo sailor from Australia, another guy called Tony Bullimore, and we were talking about it, and he was saying, I wonder if they all sleeve the bottom section of their extrusion. Now, it's a good point, because, I just do it as per standard, and what that is you have your standard aluminium pipe, okay, and inside that you put another complete section up to the bottom of the first spreaders. So you've got a double wall thickness for that section from the first spreaders all the way down to the bottom of the mast. That's what I did in the BOC. It's what Tony did, and it's what others have probably done too. So I'm definitely going to ask the question whether or not Ari did that and Tommy and Gregor did that. I'm not sure, but I'll find out. As that's possibly something. Usually when you lose a mast, certainly there's no indication yet which component failed. If you lose one part, like if a rigging screw goes or a bit of wire breaks or a fitting breaks, a tang or something like that, that's all it takes. One component of the whole package will be enough to create an unusual load on the section and you lose the whole lot. So we don't know yet. And of course, Tommy didn't get a chance to look at his rig and neither did Gregor really. It's all gone. And Ari was the same. But we'll certainly be making an interesting discussion on that. And we'll let you know if we find anything, but there's no clues or indications at the moment. Okay, lost the rig. Okay, strengthen the rig. Okay, so Ian asked another question about Gregor, Tommy losing their rigs and Mark not. He was thinking, was the issue of weight saving? Mark Slats is using piston hanks. He doesn't have a furling gear up the mast. And would that create less of a moment to create a knockdown or a rollover? My gut feeling on that is that when you get rolled over, obviously the less weight aloft you've got, the better off you are. But if it gets to the point where it's complete rollover, it's probably not going to make much difference. You're going to go whether you've got hanks or not, because it's usually a massive wave moment that's going to send you down. And there's so many factors there. I wouldn't want to say just that would stop it. It might have an effect, but normally I'd say it wouldn't. I think it's the luck of the draw. But Mark did experiment a lot. I'm not sure what Gregor and Tommy did, but he was experimenting flat out, trying to work out what to do. He was terrified, and he was working hard, and in the end he concluded it was best to have nothing, so he got rid of everything and let the boat run, with a tiny little sail up forward. And I think that was a good move, but it's hard to say, very hard to say. Okay, next one, Malcolm Collins. Same thing about mast. What goes? There's chain plates. Chain plates very rarely go. Rigging screws very rarely let go. It'll be something on the mast, either a fitting on the mast or some unusual load on the section that makes it collapse. So that's it. Okay, question from Chris Swallow. There was some confusion about Jean-Luc and the French translation of Christophe's written report, just if Jean-Luc went into the exclusion zone. No, he didn't. What Christophe was saying was that he just missed it because the zone stops at a certain point I forget what the longitude is, but it stops and you can start dipping south, so you can come down toward Tasmania. So once he got to that zone, he was okay. He could come south and get in there, and you've got to come further down because Tassie's about 40. I forget what it is now. Probably 44 or something like that. 43. It's below the actual exclusion zone. Mike Phillips, no reports of Entrants taking star sites. Now, obviously, they're all using a sextant, and the sun is a star, but he's referring to other stars, okay? And they actually are. If you look at the tweets, Tapio's shooting other stars, and a couple of the other Entrants have as well. I forget which stars they're actually shooting, which other ones beside the sun, but they are. They're getting more and more confident with their navigation as they carry on. Captain Coconut, he's an expert anyway. He's been doing it for fun in the Atlantic, but the others are now taking opportunities they can when there's no clouds and shooting other stars. Timothy Warrens, he was aware of the fact that Jean-Luc had changed his main sheet traveller from a normal traditional traveller to a 2 block and tackle system and fixed positions. And he wanted to know what's the advantage of all that. Well, it's pretty cool because you can strap the boom down. If you've got 2 main sheets effectively going to each side of the cockpit and you want to centre the boom, strap them down, the boom won't move. When you're running or something and you're on starboard tack, you can let the main go out on the port main sheet, and the other one you can disconnect it if you want. Stops chafe or whatever. So there's real advantages. There's no disadvantage. It just takes a bit longer. So if you're racing around the buoys, you don't want a dual main sheet system without a traveller. You want a traveller. But for this sort of voyaging, it makes a lot of sense, and it frees up the cockpit as well. So that's how that works. And then he was asking about the companionway modifications. They're free to do for safety reasons, and you can modify the standard production boat companionway. But he specifically asked about Susie's and Robin Davey, our good mate back there. That's done 3 BOC challenges and is going to do the 22 challenge. And they've got a hatch on an angle instead of a sliding companionway with stormboards. They've put a fixed opening hatch that just opens and closes, and it's a rectangular shape. Want to know where they got it from, and to the best of my knowledge, it's a Seaglaze custom built hatch, and they both use the same one. Seaglaze in the UK, they build it for you. It's not cheap but not expensive because there's a lot in it, and I think it was about $1,600 or something. And you can have a watertight closing hatch that's easy to get in and out of. And he asked one more question: where did Jean-Luc shorten his mast? Was it cut from the bottom or cut from the top? It was a dedicated shorter mast, so it wasn't cut from anywhere. It was just 1.5 metres shorter. Still the same sections, keel stepped, and go from there. So so that's caught us up with the questions now. I think that's probably about all. And we will get back into routine. Today's Tuesday. I'll do another session of question and answers within a week. And I'll do 2 or 3. I'll try for 3 video updates on the tracker every week now, and we'll stand by for Jean-Luc, so we'll do an update on his ETA every day. Thanks for following the race. It'll be good to get back into a routine, and we'll see you again next time. See ya.